every kid growing up in Los Angeles. For every kid that had the dream of being a professional musician, there was one place they wanted to play. A Mecca, a Taj Mahal, if you will. And that place was the Los Angeles Forum. The LA Forum has been overshadowed by the Staples Center, but for years, the Forum was the preeminent place for rock in Los Angeles. We all dreamed of playing the Forum. You know, if you lived in New York City, you dreamed of playing Madison Square Garden. But if you lived in LA, you dreamed of playing the Forum. I saw 100 great bands there over the years. I saw Pantera, Nine Inch Nails. I saw David Bowie. I saw Supertramp. I saw Jethro Tull. I saw Queen, or as my stepdad liked to say, the Queens. You're gonna go see the Queens tonight? No, Dad, they're called Queen. Is that the band that wears those dresses? Those are kimonos, Dad, and Freddie Mercury is not gay. Well, I got that one wrong. So when I joined Love Hate in 1995, to my surprise, I found out it included an all-access pass to the fabulous Forum. You see, my drummer Joey's dad was a business partner with the then owner of the Forum, Jerry Buss, and that meant we were privy to the most holy of holies, the inner sanctum of rock itself, and that place was the Forum Club. More on that later. Indulge me as I go back in time to my very first concert, which was incidentally at the Los Angeles Forum. Back in time. I went to my very first concert at the Forum when I was 16 with my good buddy Sal Fillmore. If you've read any of my books, you know Sal Fillmore is a pseudonym for a very famous actor I grew up with and went to high school with in Chatsworth, California. Now, this actor played many parts. He played a rock star, he played a fighter pilot, and he played a bat. You figure it out. The concert was Jethro Tull, and we were driven to the show by two older women. And when I say older, I meant they were 17. The innocence of youth. When we got there, the whole arena was already enveloped in a huge cloud of pot smoke, hanging in the air, moving with the rhythm like that evil cloud in the movie Independence Day. Everyone was stoned, it seemed, save us. Sal went to the refreshment stand and returned with 4 large orange drinks. You guys remember Orangeade? And as he was negotiating the narrow steps back to his seat, he tripped and spilled all 4 drinks on a huge biker guy seated in front of us. We freaked out. Sal shouted, I'm sorry, I'll pay for a new shirt. But the guy stood up, all 6'4" of him. He turned around and smiled and said, "Oh man, nothing could possibly ruin this moment for me right now." Oof. Thanks, Hashish, for saving our asses. Flash forward to the 80s and Love Hate. So as I said, I had the Forum connection. That meant not only free concerts, but Laker basketball games, Kings hockey games, and of course it meant all access to the coveted Forum Club. Now you first enter the Forum Club with a little trepidation. See, you're a young rocker. You've played the Whiskey and you've played Madame Wong's West and Gazzari's, but this was different. Real rock stars hung out here, and real rock stars were definitely what we were not. We were broke dicks. We lived in a loft in downtown LA. Our neighborhood was rife with hobos and gang members and transvestite hookers. 7th Street at Olympic Avenue, Skid Row. Now you couldn't just walk into the Forum Club normally. The security was too tight. I saw the singer from Autograph once trying to weasel himself in one night to no avail. But because of our connection, we could just walk in. And I'm sure to the lay person, that gave people the impression that we were actually somebody. Like, who is that? Who are those guys? We could dress up like rock stars, and we could sort of adopt a pseudo swagger like rock stars. But in fact, we weren't even close to being rock stars. I mean, not even close. I could afford exactly 1 beer per evening, and I had to make that fucking thing last all night long. Imagine holding the same Budweiser for hours, slowly sipping it, mechanically sipping and holding that beer until it was flat and warm and undrinkable, just to look like you belonged. I passed Robin Crosby of Rat one night in a hallway where some fan tried to pay him homage. They had just released their record, Reach for the Sky. "I really love your new record," the fan gushed at Robin. Crosby looked at him and in a deadpan voice said, "It's a piece of shit." I was sort of taken aback. Who says that? I was at the bar another night and I struck up a conversation with a real rock star. A girl came up and joined us. We were all talking and all of a sudden the rock star said, "I could really use a right now." He just said it. And the girl did nothing. I'm standing there and I'm thinking, aren't you going to slap his face or something? She just stood there. She didn't bat an eye. That's what convinced me I wasn't even in the same league as these guys. I would have never said that shit out loud. I might have thought it, but I never would have just said it. I sat through many a concert at the Forum. I watched from my little seat up in the Z section, back of the arena, anonymous, and I thought, I could sing as good as these guys. Why can't I be one of these guys? How does that happen? What's the trick? Not quitting, not giving up when you've been crushed by the record companies a couple of hundred times. Your songs suck. Your band's lame. Go back to the drawing board. It was like they were reading off a teleprompter. The Forum Club also featured a restaurant, 5-star restaurant. This was another one of the perks of having Joey in your band. Once in a blue moon, we actually got to eat. Lobster dinners. That's what we always ordered. 5-pound prime lobster dinners served with a bucket of drawn butter and all the fixins. Baked potato, dessert. It was, to a broke dick musician like me, quite something to behold. So naturally, my bass player and I had to f things up with what I called our great horseradish wars. You see, my bass player and I were very competitive. Competitive in songwriting, competitive in sports, competitive in everything. Even in eating, it seemed that he and I had to compete to see who was the biggest badass. So when we had the chance to live large at the Forum, we would ruin it by seeing who could swallow the most horseradish in one bite, who could smear the most amount of raw horseradish on a fork full of lobster and keep the whole thing down without exploding. It was weird. We would face each other across the table like arm wrestlers and dare each other to up the ante. Who could keep from barfing? Who could turn the most red and not pass out? It was kind of stupid, okay? We should have reveled in our newfound gastronomic miracle and enjoyed the meal. But no, far from it. I forgot to mention that there was always a host of celebrities dining with us at this 5-star restaurant. Before the Lakers playoff game or before the Kings hockey game, the place would be jammed with LA celebrities. And the tables were set together, so people had to sit next to each other. Sometimes I would inadvertently sit next to somebody famous. One night, I sat next to the mayor of Los Angeles, Tom Bradley. I was stoned, as usual, and dribbling horseradish down my chin. I must have looked quite the sight, like Simple Jack. I smiled at the mayor with my red bloodshot eyes. He scowled at me. I smiled. He scowled. I was the very, very opposite of politically correct. But you know what? F it. I didn't care. One night, I sat next to Mr. T. He was in full Mr. T regalia. He had all the gold chains around his neck, gold rings on every finger. He even drank from this stupid jewel-encrusted golden goblet. I took a particularly large gob of horseradish in front of him and started hallucinating green and yellow when he tapped me on the shoulder and said, "What's the matter with you, boy?" It was Clubber Lang, straight out of Rocky III. I was being scolded at the dinner table by Clubber Lang. Anyway, I never got to play the Forum. And for that, I'm just a tiny bit sad. When we toured with AC/DC in 1990, we ended up playing the Long Beach Arena for 2 nights instead of the Forum. The place was cool, it was great, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't the Forum. Check this out. Here's a last bit of fun. I did get to go to the Forum Club a few times after I had gotten my record deal, and it was glorious. No fish out of water this time. I was a made guy. I was like one of the mafia guys in Goodfellas. I could actually afford the high-priced beer. I could stand at the bar and not feel like a phony for once. So that meant I could also f things up. I waltzed into the 5-star restaurant one night, drunk as a skunk. I wanted to do something crazy, something memorable. You're high on life. The world is your oyster. I mean, you're thinking, what would Ozzy do? What would Nikki Sixx do? So I had it. Something I always wanted to do, but I never had the balls to do because of the repercussions. So I stroll into the restaurant, past the famous celebrities, eating their lobster, drinking their champagne. I saw a large table set for 8 people in front of me, a table full of fine china and expensive crystal glasses. And I said, F it. I grab one side of the white tablecloth with both hands, and I literally pulled the tablecloth off the table like magic. I just did it. Whoosh! I stood there for a second, mute, still holding that stupid tablecloth. I mean, this actually wasn't the result I had expected. Then suddenly the whole restaurant stood up and they clapped and they cheered. Bravo, Jizzo, bravo! You know, that was my first magic trick, but not my last. I do magic every day. Every day I'm above ground is magic. Singing, writing a new song, surviving. That's the best trick of all. So anyway, it's your old pal Jizzo, rockin' and rollin', and I'll see you next time.